Hey guys, welcome to the Quest for Happiness. My name is Kristen Jensen, and this is my vlog series about how I went from living in depression and anxiety into living a life full of joy, happiness, and peace, and hopefully share some tips on how you can get there too. Today, we're talking about 3 steps to increase happiness in your everyday life. Now, I know it seems like such a simple thing to do, right? Like just be happier. But the fact of the matter is it's not that easy. We all have a hard time just being happy, and that's for a lot of reasons. For me, I had a lot of childhood trauma that I had to deal with. I had sexual trauma I had to work through, and I had emotional abuse in my life that I learned to work through, right? And it's different for everyone, but everyone has it. Everyone has some sort of baggage, I guess you could call it, that they're carrying. Well, the thing is we don't need to carry that with us. But until we learn how to let go of that baggage, I have some things that can help us do exactly that. So without further ado, let's talk about the 3 things you can do every single day to make you feel a little bit more at ease, a little bit lighter, and maybe encourage you to let go some of that BS that you just don't need to hold on to anymore. So step 1 is to practice gratefulness. Now, I'm sure everyone had that crazy youth pastor as a child or whoever it was in your life that was like, practice an attitude of gratitude. And you're like, oh, okay, sure, an attitude of gratitude, got it. But the thing is, gratitude is such an important, useful tool in our everyday happiness. Not only does it rewire our brain, but it shifts our focus into things that are going right. So pretty much right now, we're usually focused on the things that are going wrong in our lives, right? So we're very focused on, oh, I was late for work today. Oh, I got in a fight with my partner. Oh, I wish, my apartment wasn't so crappy, or whatever it is that we have going on in our everyday life. We constantly go through the things in our head, even the littlest, smallest, most minute things of how crappy things are. So instead, let's practice gratefulness to shift our focus into how good things are, actually. Like, I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful for that. I have a wonderful bed. I'm grateful for that. I have a cat that sleeps with me every night. I'm grateful for that. I have clothes. I have snacks in the fridge. I have a job. I have a partner. I have electricity. It's just naming the different things, even though they may seem small and part of our everyday lives, but naming those things that we have, that we can be grateful for, because not everyone has these things. And on top of it, you may not have had these things before in your life. So take a moment to recognize how far you've come in the past 5 years. Think about you 5 years ago. Where were you? What were you doing? How are you different now? Think about yourself 10 years ago. For me, 10 years ago, I was living a very different life. I was going out to the bars and trying to drink away my problems, and then coming home at night, grabbing a few bites from the block of cheese in my fridge. Yep, no shame. And then just passing out in my bed. And then I would get up and go to work and do the same thing every night. So I'm in a lot better place right now. And I think that has a lot to do with how I started making the steps to change my life and practice happiness. So the second step that I want to talk about is practicing the power of choice, I guess is the best way to call it. So you have the power to change your life. Whatever you want to change it to, you absolutely have that power. So like I said, 10 years ago, I was living in a crappy little apartment. I had barely enough money to scrape by, and I was just not in a good spot in my life. So I got tired of living that way. I was in pain all the time. My doctors had diagnosed me with fibromyalgia because I was in just constant bodily pain all the time. I was constantly exhausted. But the thing is I wasn't doing good things for myself. I wasn't exercising. I was barely drinking any water. I hated myself. I didn't like myself, and so I was punishing myself. So I started to recognize those bad behaviors, and I started to recognize in the ways that I was treating myself really poorly. So I started choosing to treat myself differently. I chose, instead of telling myself that I was fat and lazy and not worth anything, that, yeah, maybe I was overweight, but like, who cares? And lazy, no, I just wasn't motivated. I wasn't in the right job. I didn't like what I was doing. So of course I didn't want to go to work. And of course it took all of my energy to go do that because I wasn't living my life purpose. And frankly, I was with a really crappy boyfriend at the time. And so I started choosing to treat myself differently, and my life started changing. I chose to instead treat myself with love. I chose instead to treat myself with respect. I chose instead to surround myself with people that actually lifted me up and helped me and made me be a better person, instead of the people that drugged me down, instead of the people that went to the bar with me every night, instead of the people that made me feel like I would never get out of the spot that I wanted to be, or out of the spot that I was in, and kept me away from being in the spot that I wanted to be in. So I started making these healthy decisions, right? I started choosing, I started exercising the power of choice. Now, our happiness is our own responsibility. No one else in our life can make us happy. I know that goes against everything society tells us, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's that my own happiness is completely 100% up to me. Now, of course, there's mitigating circumstances. There is crappy things that happen in our lives that, of course, knock us off balance. But we can choose to live in this state of happiness or in peace if we want to. It's hard. It's not easy. But once you start making those choices, it gets easier and easier and easier. And of course, if you have, like I talked about, if you have trauma in your past, if you have abuse in your past, it's going to be a little bit harder to make those decisions to be happier because, as I know, wholly and deeply, those things repeat in your head. Maybe not the exact circumstances, but the things that repeat in your head are of how awful you are, of how you failed, of how terrible of a person you are in one way or another, or how you're not worthy. And so you have to choose to stop listening to that voice. Choose to say thank you, but that's not where I'm going today. Now, that voice is generally trying to keep us safe, right? And that voice is generally trying to keep us in a position of not changing because change is scary. But we can choose to make ourselves happier by choosing different circumstances. If you're in a job that is soul-sucking, then honey, let's go find a different job because there are lots out there. And it may seem like there is nothing for you, but guess what? There are lots of things for you if you believe that there are. If you believe that there's nothing for you, then you've already lost. So choose to believe that there is better things out there for you, that there are better things available for you. Don't settle for that crappy job. Don't settle for that partner. Don't settle for those friends that keep you from doing what you are meant to do here on this earth. Choose your own happiness. Now, I said earlier that our happiness is our own responsibility, and sometimes that can feel like really scary, right? Like, how am I supposed to be responsible for all the things that could happen in my life? No. You're not responsible for any outside factors. All you're responsible for is what happens in here and in here. So take responsibility for that. Use that responsibility to empower yourself. Like, you are the boss of your own life. You're the boss. So guess what? You get to make all of those executive decisions about your life. If you don't like your job, go find a different one. If you don't like your partner, stop being with that person. If you don't like your friends, find new friends. Don't keep yourself in an area of, I called it the swamp, right? Like, I lived in the swamp forever. I lived in the swamp because it was way easier to stay in the swamp and to stay in this crappy lifestyle because change is hard. Start walking away from the swamp. Choose to walk away from those feelings. Now, sometimes this choice leads us to more choices, and inevitably it always does. But once we make the choice, we set ourselves on a path for success. So maybe today you make the choice to start walking away from anger, or start walking away from depression, or start walking away from anxiety, or whatever it is that's been going on in your life. Maybe you decide today to start walking away from it. You make that choice. Well, then what's your next choice? Okay, let's think about it. Do I need extra help? Well, if you do need extra help and continue to walk away from the swamp, find it. Find the friends and loved ones that support you. Find a good counselor. Find, if you are walking away from financial issues, if you're deciding today to make a choice to live better financially, go talk to a financial counselor, right? Like, there's no shame in seeking help for things that we don't exactly know how to do on our own. So make that choice today. Choose different things for yourself to make yourself happy. You are worth it. And it's important on the flip side that we re-choose the things that are working for us. So at some point, if you are with someone, you've chosen your partner, right? Take time to think about why they're special to you, why they bring more joy into your life. Why are you with them? Make a list. And don't judge it. It doesn't need judgment. Just make a list of the things that you really love about them and maybe some of the things that you dislike about them, right? And re-choose to be with them. Make that conscious decision. I choose my partner. Do the same with your job. Why do you like your job? Why do you dislike your job? Well, if the likes outnumber the dislikes, then choose to be in that job. Choose to be with these friends. Choose to pay your bills. Whatever it is, though, make the choice to keep doing it because of its positive outcome on your life. And if you aren't finding a positive outcome for these things, then let's start looking at how you can get out of that situation and look for help because there are lots of resources. Look for that one friend. Look for that family member. Look for a good counselor. Whoever it is that you need help with or whoever is in your life that could give you help, go seek them out. They'll be more than happy to help. So make those decisions, make those choices, practice making choices for your own happiness. Lastly, number 3 is practice compassion. Practice compassion both for yourself and for other people. Now, in our increasingly divided society, it's really easy to get into an us versus them mindset. But in reality, that poisons us. That poisons our entire being. And so when we put out this negative energy, all we're doing is poisoning our own inner well. Whenever we say, oh, those people aren't like me, I don't like them, we're poisoning our inner well. Now, totally okay to not like some people. Like, I'm not saying that you don't need to like everyone and get along with everyone. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But when we demonize an entire group of people because they're not like us, we lose. because we're all humans. And maybe these people are acting the way that they are because they had childhood trauma. Maybe they're acting the way that they are because they are currently in an abusive relationship. Maybe that they're acting the way that they are because they're barely scraping by. They used all of their money to help a family member out of debt or to help a family member get a medical cost covered. Like, you don't know. And practice compassion for yourself too. Look at all of the things that you've been through in your life. And practice compassion. Look at it through the lens of a friend. Imagine you are your best friend and you're looking at yourself through their eyes. And maybe you tell them all the tough things that have gone in on your life. What would they say? What would they do for you? Do that for yourself. When I was first recovering, when I was first walking out of the swamp, every day I would give myself a hug. Like, wrap my arms around myself and squeeze, because I needed it. I needed a hug every damn day. And at first it felt super weird, but then it just started helping. I just gave myself a hug and it was like a nice start to my morning. Most days when I was walking away from the swamp, I would look myself in the mirror and tell myself I loved her because she deserved love. Even though I felt inside that I wasn't deserving of love, I knew in my brain I was. So I decided to start changing that belief and start practicing compassion for myself. So I said, Kristen, I love you. Every single day, I gave myself a little talk in the mirror, and it doesn't need to be this whole like amazing, like you're gonna crush it today, tiger. Like, no, just genuinely tell yourself what you need to hear. And sometimes it might just be looking in the mirror and saying, I love you. And other days, practicing compassion for yourself might be looking like setting clear boundaries. If someone asks you to watch their kids after work or do extra work or whatever it is that you just don't have the energy for, be compassionate to yourself and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that today. You don't need to feel bad for it because taking care of you is number one priority. One of the comparisons I like to talk about whenever I talk about this particular subject with people is that of an airplane. You know how you're about to take off and the flight attendants are giving their speech on flight safety and staying safe while in the air. Well, what do they say in the case of depressurization from the cabin? They say oxygen masks will drop, and then what? You put the mask on over yourself, secure it, and then help the person next to you. Well, that's exactly what you need to do for your own love and energy in your life. Put the oxygen mask over yourself first because you're no good to anyone passed out. You can't help your neighbor. You can't help your loved ones. You can't help out at work more if you're passed out, right? Passed out, if you don't have the energy to go do that. So practice compassion for yourself by setting good boundaries. Other times, practicing compassion for yourself might look like parenting yourself. Honestly, like being a good parent to yourself, making sure you're eating a healthy, balanced diet, making sure you're eating more vegetables, making sure you're drinking more water, making sure you're not eating too much sugar and other bad things, making sure you're getting exercise and going to bed on time, surrounding yourself with people that are good for you, right? Think about all the things a good parent would do and then do that for yourself. And sometimes it may seem mundane, but let me tell you, this is the core of self-care. It is absolutely being a parent to yourself, 100%. Clean your room, right? Like, take a shower every day. Do the things that your parents or maybe your friends' parents, you saw them like nagging their kids about. If you didn't have the greatest childhood, think about what you saw and then do that for yourself. I'm 100% honest, more veggies, more water, enough sleep. Boy, that will really make a difference in your everyday life. And cutting out sugar too. Honestly, that was a huge impact maker for me, was drastically reducing my sugar intake. It made me feel pretty crappy in general. And so that's something I advise to people who come to me for, energy and diet and general happiness advice, is cut down on sugar. I know it's hard because cookies are delicious, but be conscious about consuming your sugar. So that's all about practicing compassion for yourself, right? And so those are my 3 tips today for everyday happiness I hope you can take into your week. We're going to practice gratefulness. We're going to practice the power of choice and taking responsibility for our happiness. And that's very empowering, right? And we're going to practice compassion, both for ourselves and for other people as well. And so what this does, these 3 steps, they work together really well. They're really, synergistic, right? Because our compassion engages our heart. Our choice engages our mind, and our gratefulness engages both, right? Because we're thinking about things to be grateful for, and then we're feeling the gratefulness in our heart, right? And sometimes you might need help with these things. So make it a little exercise for yourself. Give yourself 10 to 15 minutes every day to do each of these steps. And 10 minutes is not a lot to ask for, right? Like, you're already this far in this video, so just take an extra few minutes to practice those things today. Make yourself a list of all the things you're grateful for. Make yourself a list of the things in your life, and then a list of positives and negatives under each of those, right? And then choose to either let them go or choose to keep them in your life. Practice that compassion today. Tell yourself, I love you. Tell yourself that you are worth it and that you are deserving of love, because you absolutely are, 100%. And so that's what I have for you this week, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to this extra long video. I appreciate you being here, and I will see you soon. Have a great week, guys. And if you want to catch up with me, hit me up either on Twitter, that's @innerguidance, all one word with an underscore after it, or on IG @innerguidance, no underscore. See you around. Bye.